In this episode, we're going to talk about point number 4 of Dr. Deming's 14 points of management. Point number 4, in the practice of awarding business on the basis of price tag, move toward a single supplier for any one item on a long-term relationship of loyalty and trust. So when I was working with an industrial distributor early in my career, I used to sell many products, but one of them was carbide inserts made by General Electric Carballoy. And often the price of our carbide inserts, which by the way, carbide inserts are used on typically a cutting item like a lathe or other machines that are used for industrial use. But the carbide inserts were kind of expensive. And so constantly I would run up against buyers or purchasing agents that were trying to get a lower cost. And I often got lowballed. But what typically happened, and I always waited for this to happen, and I wasn't even sure why at the beginning, but machinists would complain because the carbide inserts that were being purchased at the lower price kept breaking. And so these carbide inserts would break over and over again, and the complaints came out, and eventually the buyer would come back to me and say, hey, we need to go back to buying General Electric's Carballoy carbide inserts for our cutting machines. So it's one of those things that, in this case, it was lower quality material, but lower quality typically comes out when you're buying the cheapest. Now, that isn't always true, certainly. As a matter of fact, when you look at total cost, in this case, this is what we'd be looking at, because General Electric's Carballoy inserts, maybe they would have to replace it once a day. Just giving you some baseline. But a competitor, if it would break maybe 4 or 5 times a day. So even though they may have got it half the price, it wind up costing them double the amount. So this is one of the reasons why you don't base it off a price tag. It's got to be the performance. It's got to be the quality. There's a number of factors that go into the word quality associated with inserts. Plus, another example I like to use is if you went for back surgery, would you go to the cheapest doctor? I mean, you would go to the one that had the highest quality or the best reputation in the industry. And then one thing I kind of go along with that is the success rate. So in other words, if I'm going for back surgery, so I go to one doctor, our surgeon might say, I've had 100% success rate. Well, then I find out he's had 2. And another doctor says, I've had a 95% success rate, but it's done 10,000 surgeries. So which one are you going to go with? So these are some of the things you need to consider associated with basing your business off of just the price tag alone. So what are the takeaways? Well, my first lesson that I learned from point number 4 is this kind of rub between the cheapest is the best route to go versus the lower total cost. And obviously the lowest total cost is the route that you want to go. So that means you're going to have to look at a number of factors associated with what you're trying to get out of a particular product or service. And so, if all things being equal and everybody had the same material on carbide inserts and those types of things, there may be other factors associated with what's leading to the lowest total cost of a particular item. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy when I go into a lot of organizations. Oh, we're just a commodity. You're never a commodity. You always have an opportunity to differentiate yourself and have a better product or service in the marketplace. And so this lowest cost or being the cheapest in the market really doesn't play. It's the highest, it's the best quality fit for that particular person, for particular product that's being used, whatever it is. The second lesson that I learned from this is the second half of this, which is move toward a single supplier for any one item on a long-term relationship of loyalty and trust. And I was like, why would anybody do that? We, as an industrial distributor, we had a backup for a backup for a backup for a backup of different vendors for multiple products. So we'd have all these types of things. But this is one of the things that I really believe that if you're going to be an effective executive, you've got to understand what variation is. And the amount of variation is what's at play here. When you have one supplier going through one particular system, it's going to produce a certain amount of quality. And by working with that one supplier, you can reduce the variation, meaning the amount of good product versus bad product, for instance, even if they inspect it out. Remember, we talked earlier in an earlier point about the cost can't be inspected out. The cost is already there. You know, whether you scrap it or rework it, there's more cost added to that particular product. So reducing the amount of variation will help you achieve less rework, less scrap in a particular product, less rework in a service. So reducing the amount of variation in a product or service is key for an effective executive to understand, or literally you can go nuts. Now, if you got something out of this particular point number 4, I've got 10 more coming. Please hit subscribe below, hit the bell, and you'll be notified as the next point comes out.